going to start out this episode by not discussing a wrestling game.
Say what?
No, let's talk about some Final Fight instead. Final Fight was a seminal entry in the beat-em-up genre, released in the arcades by Capcom in 1989. You may remember me dropping a reference to Final Fight back in episode 12, in an epic bit of foreshadowing. Okay, fine, it was just a coincidence. Are you happy? Anyway, the story focuses on former pro wrestler Mike Haggar, now the newly elected mayor of Metro City. As an aside, even as kids we thought the idea of a pro wrestler as elected official was comical, but given what Jesse Ventura later did, maybe Mike Haggar thought too small. Haggar's daughter is kidnapped by the villainous Mad Gear Gang to ensure that Haggar plays ball with the criminal enterprise, as the previous mayor did. Upon finding out, Haggar takes the only logical course of action. No, not alerting the police or forming a SWAT team. Instead, he takes off his shirt, gathers his two buddies, and hits the street to bust some heads. They literally walk the entire length of Metro City and kick the shit out of everyone they see. I'm guessing if the mayor of your city tried this, it would not go well. But thanks to his pro wrestling background, Haggar is able to suplex, headbutt, and pile drive through hundreds of miscreants. Final Fight was enormously popular, but curiously Capcom never made any sequels for the arcade, although there were two for the Super Nintendo. Final Fight characters, both heroes and villains, would later live on in the Street Fighter series of games. Mike Haggar himself went back to his pro wrestling roots in 1993's Saturday Night Slam Masters. As an aside, Saturday Night Slam Masters is a tremendous name for a game, but the Japanese name, Muscle Bomber the Body Explosion, might even be better. The Japanese version of the game lists itself as a prequel of sorts, taking place before the events of Final Fight, while the American version has Haggar as the former mayor of Metro City, which would place it afterwards. But if my mayor was a wrestling vigilante, I don't see how he wouldn't get re-elected, so I'm going to side with the Japanese and say Slam Masters is a prequel. Slam Masters follows the wrestlers of the Capcom Wrestling Association, and gives you 8 wrestlers from around the world to choose from. Besides Haggar, the main protagonist is Alex Slamkovich, Russian? Well, that goes against decades of tradition for wrestling, video games, and life in general. But hey, he loves American heavy metal music.
My love for you is like a truck berserker. Would you like some making buck berserker?
My personal favorite might be Alexander the Greater, a total Vader ripoff, complete with an enormous helmet for his entrance. And by the way, that's greater as in cheese grater, not better than. Like WrestleFest, Slam Masters gives you 2 arcade options. Single, where you go through the roster in singles action before getting to boss characters Jumbo, Flapjack, and Scorpion. Or Team Battle Royal, where you and a partner, either human or the computer, battle another tag team in tornado elimination style action. It's very similar to the Bedlam feature in Raw, or vice versa I suppose, since Saturday Night Slam Masters came out first. It's also the most fun to be had in the game, especially since Slam Masters could support 4 players at a time. There are a lot of similarities here to Street Fighter 2, also made by Capcom. In fact, a lot of details like the post-match trash talk, the continue screen, and the points total post-match are almost identical. The character Gunlock is even revealed to be Guile's brother, and I'm pretty sure King Rastaman is Blanca before he was turned into a monster. In fact, you can't even say Slam Masters is a true wrestling game. It's more half fighter, half wrestling. But don't get me wrong, the action takes place in a ring with a referee, and the point is to pin your opponent. But in addition to normal grapple moves like suplexes and slams, each wrestler has crazy moves, like Luchador El Stingray has a flying headbutt where he flies across the ring. And you do the move the same as a Ryu Fireball in Street Fighter 2. It's a much different experience from the usual button masher, one that requires a lot more skill in remembering and pulling off maneuvers. The game looks great. Slam Masters was one of the few games at the time that gave you an entrance, complete with lasers and smoke machines, and individual, if short, themes for each wrestler. But what I appreciate most is the size difference between the wrestlers. Titanic Tim, who is 7'9", towers over the rest of the roster. Compare that to Raw, where Diesel and Bret Hart are the same height. My only disappointment in the presentation is that the shows take place all over the world, but the arenas all look the same. It's a letdown after the memorable backgrounds of the Street Fighter series. At least throw up some more flags or something. There's an updated version of Slam Masters released as Muscle Bomber Duo, Ultimate Team Action, which as the name implies focused on tag team matches. That game was later followed by a direct sequel, Ring of Destruction Slam Masters 2, but that version was essentially a straight-up 2D fighter. The original Slam Masters received ports on the Super Nintendo Genesis, and something called the FM Towns Marty? Are you messing with me, Wikipedia? Anyway, the Super Nintendo was a fairly faithful port, while the Genesis version took out the Team Battle Royal. On the plus side, they replaced it with Deathmatch mode. Yeah, I'm talking barbed wire, weapons strewn about, landmines outside the ring deathmatch. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't fun, but I did end up missing the tag mode. Slam Masters is a ton of fun, fondly remembered years later. It's a lot looser wrestling game. And if you like WWE All-Stars, you'll likely enjoy this too. It's worth a few quarters if you ever see an arcade version, or a few bucks for either the Genesis or SNES carts. And if you can't get enough Mike Haggar, and really who can, he's still busting heads to this day as a playable character in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Until next time, thanks for watching, and remember, the winner is you.
Next time on the Funtime Arcade.